think we're good. Sorry, a little bit of tech difficulties. Um, Morning, Armor Down. Well, I'm self-conscious about my hair here. How's your sleep? I slept fine. Uh, sleep is sleep is consistent. It's reliable. I never think about it, except for when I ask you about it. So I hope you're sleeping well. Um, Always keep in mind more water. That helps. Napping. Napping is awesome. And of course, mindfulness. Why would that matter? Well, the title for today is Triggered is Truth, right? So, what does that mean? Well, if we're talking about being triggered, we have to talk about the central nervous system. And the central nervous system is this system that's been passed down from generation to generation for 13 billion years or something like that. And so it's smart. Okay, just know that your central nervous system is smart. So anytime significant things happen to you, especially if it deals with something physical, something that has a lot of internal experience, heartfelt experience, anytime that takes place, your central nervous system remembers that. And it remembers it by essentially storing its memory in your body. And the memory that's stored in the body is essentially just kind of set as a a trigger to be reminded that this is significant and to quickly get back to a place or get to a place where all hands on deck. And so what I mean by triggered is truth. I mean that when you are triggered, everything comes into a focus, and it's not necessarily a useful focus. It's just that everything comes into focus. And so what that means is in that moment, regardless of what an outside perspective might be, in that moment, what's taking place in your triggered moment is what's true for you. Now, what's true for you may not be accurate, okay? It may be accurate. It may be dead on. But what makes triggered true over time is important to understand. So something may trigger you, and what's true for you may come up. But what sustains the trigger, or what kind of keeps you in that kind of triggered space, isn't the trigger. It's the story that you tell about the trigger. So your central nervous system doesn't understand time. Okay, for your central nervous system, the time is always the present moment. And so, if something happened to you 10 years ago, your central nervous system won't assess the fact that it happened 10 years ago. It'll just reconnect to that triggered memory. And it's a body memory. It's the way it's a body feel. It's very sophisticated. It's deep. So your body, your nervous system has no concept of time. So there's a triggered instant, okay? Say it's a really significant instant. Triggered, boom, truth for you, great. Time passes. Triggered is now 2 minutes ago, 5 minutes ago. What has sustained that kind of focus? The story. It's so easy to get into the story. And it doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter how trained you are. It doesn't matter how untrained you are. It is unbelievably easy to go from triggered to story. And it's almost like it's it's preconditioned, or that we are conditioned to do it, period. And it's very easy to argue that we are conditioned to go into story. I mean, the most powerful person, the most powerful people in the world can articulate why what they're doing is valuable based on the story they tell about it. And one of the big stories that the triggered moment, or one of the big stories that a triggered moment triggers, is the story of who to blame, whose fault it is, why what I'm feeling is okay, why I should continue to feel this way, why this feeling is justified. And then if you can attach blame, if you can say, well, the reason why I sliced my thumb open with a huge knife while cutting freaking sweet potatoes is because my wife asked me to do it, and my kids were distracting me, and the stupid knife wasn't sharp enough, and sweet potatoes stick to the metal sometimes when you cut them, and I should have been paying more attention. And any number of those kind of excuses can be combined into a very compelling narrative that validates why what happened is not your fault, or what happened has people to be blamed on. And so the problem with that, the problem with that is twofold right off the bat. The first problem is you're practicing the narrative. That's the first problem. The first problem is you're practicing the narrative, which means that you are practicing the thing that makes the trigger so powerful. That's why it's truth, right? Trigger's truth. If your triggered narrative is sustained over and over and over again, then it's your truth. Like it's what you believe. And so that's problem number one. Problem number two is that you're not training anything else. If you're constantly going from triggered to your narrative, then you're validating your narrative. You're validating that narrative as 100% valuable. Your narrative is never more than 33% valuable. It's not. It's just not. It's like saying, a great idea is no good without action, right? Well, what you're saying there is that you can think of a great idea all you want, but until you put it into action, it's just a great idea. Well, that's the same thing about a trigger. If you're promoting your narrative and giving your narrative 100% value, you're giving something that only is 33% valuable 100% value. It's fake value. It's not real value, and you're practicing fake value. So the problem is it's fake value to begin with, and then the second problem is that you're practicing it. So it becomes more and more ingrained in your brain. Like that is the problem. And then so now it's not just triggered, it's everything. Everything becomes your narrative. Everything you read online goes into the narrative. Every story you have is part of the narrative. You begin to believe deeply in your narrative. And then you find other people that follow the same narrative, and you get even more entrenched in this notion that there's a scenario where your narrative is the right narrative, which is just all garbage. It's garbage. There is no such thing as 100% valuable narrative. There's a 33% valuable narrative. There's a 33% valuable action, and then there's 33% of the mystery. You put all that together, now you got some value. But until you put all the rest together, all you've got is what you can come up with in your head, and what you can come up with in your head is mostly junk. It's mostly junk. And the reason why it's mostly junk is because that's kind of what we've been kind of created for ourselves. We've created an emphasis on the narrative, the thinking. We've created an emphasis on thinking, and we've gave it prominence over everything else. And what's happening is that the narrative has literally turned mad. Mad. And that's what happens when you're triggered. You become kind of mad, like a little bit crazy. And you can see it with young nervous systems. Watch kids. Kids will get angry at their siblings, and they'll stay angry for minutes, sometimes hours. And the reason why they're angry is because they're stuck in the narrative that it's their sister or their brother's fault. And you ask them, and they'll say, well, that's so and so, da da da. And they'll just be so angry. And then once it breaks, and they'll start crying, and it just happens every single time. And so, I mean, it's not, I don't know if it's kind of the evolution of the nervous system and its relationship to thinking, or that it's cultural. I don't know. I mean, maybe that's just the natural progression of things. And you've got to have this narrative in order to identify a self. But anyway, you watch it in a young central nervous system, it's easy to see. You watch it in, the veteran community, different stuff. And then it just gets into the blame game and the storytelling. And then you go online and bam, there's the narrative right there, validated with all kinds of shady stuff. And then you go to live it, right? And then you go to live your narrative, and it's just so silly. The stuff that I see that is just so silly is the people trying to be hard with guns in their hands. And like, I saw this in Iraq. I remember being in Iraq, and I remember trying to do crowd control after an IED went off that killed a bunch of MPs. And nobody in Iraq gave a fuck about my long gun. They couldn't give a shit. They would look at the civilians would see my long gun and be like, yeah, you're not going to use that. They didn't give a fuck. They cared if I pulled out a baton. They cared if I pulled out a pistol or a knife. But they didn't care if I pulled out a long gun because they knew the rules of regulation. They knew I couldn't use it. Well, you see that now. You see that now with these militia guys and gals and their guns, and they're all full battle rattle, kitted up. They got their 9, and they're just like, fuck you, and you're like, fuck you, and they're just, yeah, well, I'm gonna shoot you. And now you've got civilians who are like, nah, you're not gonna shoot me. So you've got civilians. Like yesterday, I saw one where a civilian, and they're both civilians. I saw a young woman on her camera and another guy with a gun. This is one of those, kitted out desert firearms. Just like, he's like, he's pointing his gun at her, and she's like, he's got a gun, and she's still videotaping. She's not doing anything. Her behavior is not changing at all. She's just like, he's got a gun, look, he's got a gun, and this dude's losing it. He's losing it. It's gone. And he's got his gun out, right? And he's still not helping. That gun is so useless. I can't even tell you. It's so utterly useless. God, you pull a gun and that type of stuff. You pull a gun when you're triggered. What's being triggered is the narrative. It's not a real thing. And so when you pull out a gun, which is a real thing, to try to deal with this imaginary narrative, this imaginary enemy kind of stuff, it's just not going to compute. And you've got the rules, you've got the law, you've got your own kind of understandings about how to be safe with a gun, because that's how you train with it. And then you've got this woman yelling at you about some political shit, and you get triggered so much that you pull your gun on this person, knowing full well that if you shot her, you'd be a murderer, so you can't shoot her, but at the same time, you can't do anything with this gun that's supposed to give you this power. It's just so freaking, it's funny, it's frustrating, it's sad, but it just speaks to the point I'm making. The stuff that we've got going on is truth. It just doesn't play out. And the bottom line is that your narrative is not true. It's just not true. It's 33% valuable. No matter what thought you come up with, it's 33% valuable. The reason why it's 33% valuable, because it's just in your fucking head. It's not actioned. Once you action it, Then it can get up to 66. Once you action it over time, like over days and days and weeks and months and years, then you get 33% of the unknown. And then you might be getting to something that's actually valuable. But the fact that you're thinking it up in your head, nope, it's got 33% value. That's it. There's no more than that. Then if you take it into action, you can get up to 33% added value with the action you put onto it. And then if you keep that going over time, you can get up to 33% of value with the unknown, which is how it plays out over time and what it kind of attracts and brings and what changes. You can get up to 100% that way, but you can't get up to 100% in a moment. You know, it's just not going to happen. So, you know, that's I guess that's the thing. It's like triggered doesn't equal truth. Triggered equals 33% true, right? But for the non-practitioner, 33% is 100, and that's a problem. So that's why we train. That's why we practice. That is literally why the practice has value, is because at each bell, you're studying the different layers with your attention. And your attention is what holds the thought, the action, and the unknown. Your attention or your awareness holds that. You know, your awareness offers you choice of where to put your energy. And so you do that choice based on what you're aware of. The problem is when you're triggered, you're not aware of anything but the fact that you're triggered. So you get pigeonholed. So you don't want to do that. It's just not helpful, ever. Like, I guess you could say it's helpful if you're triggered by anger and you need to go, attack a machine gun nest or a sniper position, and you got to just say fuck it and get it done. I can see how that would be valuable then. So there is some value to being triggered. Don't get me wrong. But anyway, that's why we train. So let's train. Let's freaking train. Let's do the thing that's necessary to keep this stuff at bay, because it's very much a part of our lives and it's very much a part of our kind of makeup. And it's not something that we have to do. We don't have to be that way. And what's even more valuable is we don't have to pass this on to the next generation. The woke generation, which is, kind of being made fun of by the unwoke, and the woke generation also doesn't quite understand the whole scenario. There's an element of wokeness, which is idea plus action, but idea plus action without the unknown, idea plus action without sustainment or sustainability just creates another problematic narrative. So anyway, but the next generation is more attuned to this. And so what we've got to do as the older generation is we've got to talk about sustainability. And we've got to interact with the younger generation, the woke generation, with the language of sustainability, because you can take woke into the same territory as the poor bastard who doesn't know how to control himself and has pulled his gun over some politics and now can't use it. The ultimate form of impotence, right? You're so mad. No point you can get across. You can't get across any point, so you pull your gun. And the person doesn't do anything different. You're like, fuck you, I'm going to kill you. And they're like, no, you're not. Like, I'm going to kill you. Look at this gun. It's in your face. I'm putting it in your face. And they're just like, no, you're not. I'm videotaping you. I'm going to put you on Facebook. And fuck you. And you're like, here's my gun. Look at my gun. I'm going to shoot you. And they're like, no, you're not. Even if you do, your life is fucked and you still don't get your point. You're going to be like that poor dumb idiot who now is life in prison because he came from Wisconsin to Minnesota with his long gun to fix shit. But I got my gun out. I don't care. Here's my videotaping. Oh, man, I can't tell you how much I understand that dude's suffering. That is the essence of suffering right there. Man. Anyway, what are your cues for comfort? What makes you comfort? What makes you comfortable? You need to have this on the tip of your tongue. I say what makes you comfortable. You should be like, all right, let's do it. And you know exactly what you're doing. You should know exactly what you're doing by now to make yourself 2 to 5% more comfortable. You should know exactly what on the outside makes you more comfortable. You should know if being close to a door bothers you or not. You should know that if you have your back to something, you should know if it bothers you or not. If it doesn't bother you, you should know that it doesn't bother you. You should know the lighting you like. If you haven't tried different lighting, then try it. You may be stuck in the mindset of, oh, just suck it up, just deal with it, which I totally understand. Break that habit. Find the things that you like. Get an extra pillow. You may be cold. Get a blanket. Know what makes you comfortable and do it. All right. So here comes first bell. What is the first sensation that shows up for you? Sight, sound, taste, touch, or smell? Try closing your eyes and see what happens. Try zooming in on your skin and see what you can notice. Maybe temperature, maybe breeze. Zoom in on your sense of smell. Is there anything you can smell? Notice the taste of your mouth. What does your mouth taste like? What does your mouth feel like? There's touch. You can touch your teeth with your tongue, a sense of touch. Moisture. You can tell that there's moisture, that sense of touch. Let's go second bell here. Ground. What's beneath you? Pelvis, base of the spine. Core. Heart space, shoulder blades. Throat space, jaw. Top of the head. Alertness, uprightness. Imagine getting taller by a millimeter. Relaxed. Soften muscles. Soften forehead. Soften behind the eyes. Soften nose and cheeks. Soften upper lip, bottom lip, chin. Soften all muscles. The spine is upright and alert. The muscles are softened and relaxed. Let's move in third bell. Baseline breath. Max breath. Think sides, breathe sides, feel sides. Think front, back, feel front, back, breathe front, back. Think up and down, breathe up and down, feel up and down. Four, 7, 8, 2 rounds. Full in, hold at the top. Notice where you're holding. Relax your shoulders. Exhale, mouth all the way to the bottom. Close mouth, blow out the rest with the nose. Hold at the bottom. In through nose. Pause at the top, breathe in more with mouth. Hold at the top. Exhale, nose. Get to the bottom, blow out with mouth. Hold. Notice where you're holding. Breathe in nose. Settle back to normal. Sit for a minute. What are you grateful for? Is there anybody that you know that's really struggling or suffering, and can you open your heart to their suffering? Take 2 breaths. On the second exhale, come back to the room. Now, if you can at all notice the shift from one part of attention to the next part of attention to the next part of attention to gratitude and compassion, then you're practicing being the chooser, right? So you're practicing the choice, which is the opposite of triggered is truth. Triggered is truth just to the triggered. It's not truth to the world. It's just truth to the triggered. And what you're understanding by being here and practicing is that you're not the triggered truth. You're not what's going on in your body. You're not what's going on in your thoughts. You're the awareness of your thoughts. You're the awareness of what's going on in your body. And every single time you practice making that distinction, you get better at being the awareness as opposed to what's being triggered or what's happening or the thing that's going on. And that's the most greatest superpower that you can develop for yourself. Hands down, period, full stop. Once you begin to see that what you really are is the awareness of these things as opposed to these things, your life will take on a different quality. And what that quality is that you didn't have before is choice. It's choice. It's choice, not just over your external, but it's choice over your internal. And it's not, I just want to be happy all the time. It's not, I choose to be positive. It's not that. It's choice for how you handle what's showing up. It's not choice over what shows up. It's choice over the handling of what's up. And that, my friends, that is some shit. Anyway, I have seen you two kind, wonderful people. What's up, Troop? The whole time. And I am so grateful for that. So thank you for being on screen. Thank you for participating. And we'll see you tomorrow.